Hello, everyone. This is Jim Okrasinski with your Father's Day edition of the weekly Screencast video. This week, we're going to talk about. Actually, I'm going to cover a lot of material this week, so I might talk a little fast. You may have to replay the video, so I'll try to get through this and keep the Screencast video under 10 minutes, is my goal. We're going to talk about exercise 1.5. I am taping this Sunday morning, and responses are due, and then I'll go through some of the topics that are posted for exercise 1.5. As I go through grading your discussion board posts, we'll have a conversation there about your topics. I've had many conversations during the course of the week with students about topics, keeping the course theme in mind, some things to, or some items, I should say, to think about in your topic. I'll always ask a lot of questions. I will challenge your thinking and direction. That's just what we do here in college. I'll work through that the next 2 or 3 days. I say next couple of days. I should have them wrapped up on Monday. Needless to say, we're going to go through to we're heading into chapter 2, which is all about research. Chapter 2 is going to be the focus. I'll get to the course unit in a minute. I'll talk a little bit about the research modules and the library as a resource. And then at the end of the screencast video, I am going to discuss the evaluative annotated bibliography, or the EAB. I want to introduce that assignment. I'll pull up the sample and briefly talk about that. I will cover it in detail in this week's lecture video, with also some of the components of chapter 2. Let's see, let's get here to the course unit. All right, take a look at this week's activities. Also, I'm beginning to roll down some of the course units to the bottom of the page. Week 1 moves all the way on down, as you can see there, so that we're working in some of the more current weeks. As we move along, this will be the pattern that I'll roll some of the units down to the bottom of the page. The assignments for the week, of course, is reading chapter 2. You want to focus on pages 48 to 55, right? There is a discussion board activity this week, is to discussion board number 5. It's about evaluating sources for your research project. Don't forget your responses there. I think evaluating sources is a very important component about research nowadays. More and more, I see students in the research projects just grabbing random internet sources with little investigation into what makes a good source, how do we classify a good source. That will also creep into the lecture discussion and lecture video that I'll post in the middle of the week. Okay. The key here is the research modules that'll be due this week. I believe there are 6 of those research modules, part of the library resource. So I have the dates in the schedule. You want to make sure you work through modules 1 to 4 and then 5 and 6. After each module, there is a quiz, and that's where the points are assigned. So you want to make sure that you collect those points for the modules. I think there's like 50 points total for those research modules. You might want to check the syllabus on that. So look at the course schedule for the due dates on those. Now, one thing I want to point out here is that I have a rather lengthy library research page here about using our library. As I say here, I call it Library Research in the Day of COVID-19. This was an interesting page and an email put together by our English librarian at COD, or I should say Professor Jason Ertz. I've worked with Jason for years now. My courses we do when we're in class or on campus, we do many library sessions. So he's compiled this for all of us that missed our library sessions in the spring. And I too will cover this in a little bit more detail when I talk about the lecture video in chapter 2. But you want to kind of look at some of his videos. Some of them might be a little lengthy. He gives a time limit here on what some of his videos run, so you have an idea. But Really, as far as the e-sources go from the library, you can just about discover all sorts of strategies to make yourself aware of how to use the library in the way of doing research for this particular project. You want to test your access to the library, see if you can get into the databases ahead of time. I would do that like now, because of the fact that you may have to register, or you don't want to leave it till last minute, I should say, when you're looking to get into a database and you can't get in there because of access restricted, being off site. So you want to make sure that you can get into the databases and search the library from home. All right. Also here, eSources at the library is a link that I left in the course menu. Okay, you can always ask them or make an appointment. They do really have the same services online and virtual like they do in person. So that's always a wonderful resource. The library is going over and above, okay, to help everyone during these times. All right, and it's really kind of benefited us and the online community. So this is where you want to make sure that you work through the library information here. All right, the research modules and the library there. The discussion board number 5 is all about the chapter 2 content. Here, let's get over to discussion boards. Let's get down to, oh, I'm past it. All right, so here I'm looking for specific information from the textbook. Um, Looking for summary. I'm looking for some work on the evaluating online sources, peer review, okay? Other ways to look at sources. So I'm looking for a lengthy initial post, about 300 and 350 words, and then respond to your classmates, right? You need 2 responses. I did not create a thread on this, so you're going to have to create a thread, last name in the subject line, then complete your post. All right, kind of straightforward on that. So let's get over to the annotated bibliography weekly course units again. All right, week 4. Okay, so the target assessment here in your next big assignment that is worth 20% of your course grade is the annotated bibliography. All right. So its total points are 200. The time I list on this is ongoing. The purpose is to define the scope and establish the research basis for an essay of 8 pages or 2,500 words. So this is for your research essay, which is going to be about 8 pages, 2,500 words, meets the Illinois Articulation Initiative requirements. So for more information, read chapter 2, as I say here, review the material in the EAB folder in our drive folder. I think I'll have some additional information in there. If not, then you can pretty much, I think I moved everything over to the Blackboard unit here. All right. So if you want to use Zotero or Noodle tools, you can use that to help you organize and format your bibliography, your citations. Okay. So your bibliography will earn the most points if it contains all of the following components. You should have a minimum of 8 sources. Believe me when I say a minimum, 8 sources, 8 completed sources. So please don't put something up there and say like, I'm going to interview somebody about this and it's going to come. No, that's just like the check is in the mail. All right. So the idea here is I need 8 completed sources with annotations. I don't want anything more than 10. Okay. And I want at least 1 or 2 sources from each of the 4 categories listed below. So the first thing you're going to do for your annotated bibliography is you're going to write me an introduction and research question. That's a paragraph, right? A specific, clearly defined, focusing research question followed by a well-crafted paragraph explaining background information about your interest in this question and its significance to you and your potential readers about your research topic. So I want an introduction. Next, the categories are as follows, and I'll cover those more in the lecture videos. You're going to need something from published books or articles, right? So I say books written, edited, scholarly or technical journals through the library databases. The databases are just wonderful resource there for even magazines and newspaper articles. Now I say here for magazines and newspaper articles if they are substantive. So if you want to think about what those articles will look like, if for example, if we go back to our Twangy and our Lukyanov and Heitz articles were both published in the Atlantic. Both were really substantive. They were just well developed. They were lengthy, had a lot of documentation as far as evidence in them. So you want to look at something like that if you're going to use it to fit this category. And the next category are internet sources, right? Organizations, businesses, government, .govs, some of your .edus might be publishing some information that you need. This category includes blogs, discussion forums, if you can find something that's substantive, right? So you have to explain to your choice based on the credibility and how it represents an important point of view related to your focal question. They really have to, just can't be any old Google site that you find there. Multimedia sources, right? So this category would include documentary films, TED presentations, or other significant items from visual media. Okay, so I'm going to recommend this. It's optional, but nowadays we have a lot more information out there that is available to us in especially with COVID-19, with virtual content, right? So the category, I'm seeing a lot of great documentaries out there. There's always TED presentations, even some stuff, information that's published on YouTube. I will, if you're going to use a YouTube video, it needs to be what I'm going to go back to that word substantive, right? Who is the person providing the video? What are their credentials? Okay. How long is it? How complicated is it? How does it address the issue? All right. So the last category here is living sources or field work. So as I say, refer to the textbook. Okay, you can use interviews for, depending upon your topic, or some sort of a survey or field work. All right, that you can go direct to a primary source and ask them about their experience with your topic. So the idea here is I know it's a shortened summer and we're in the era of COVID, so fieldwork may not work, but certainly you can do a virtual interview. You can contact an email interview. The textbook talks about all of these types of ways of emailing and interviewing someone. So you're looking to get some real life experience that can be used as academic evidence, and we'll talk about that as we move forward. But you do want to work in some living sources. Now, once again, this must be completed. Please don't use an annotation that says I will be doing a survey or I will be interviewing. No, the survey needs to be completed and the interview needs to be completed and documented according to MLA criteria. All right. You will also need a conclusion paragraph where you explain where you are now in your thinking. Having engaged with sources, you annotated about your question, right? And how has your thinking changed, right? So it's important for everyone to look at the assignment here, think about how you're going to attack this project. And I have what is an annotation. So I'll cover this more in the lecture video. You'll want to read through that. And just let's see for reference, because I am running a little long in this screencast video. I really wanted to keep it under 10 minutes, but I just can't do it. All right, let this PDF open up. This is an excellent example of a annotated bibliography. This particular well, I know who this is. This is about attending community college, right? Apparently, if I remember correctly, the student took a lot of grief from a lot of her friends and her classmates a senior in high school, when her intention was to attend COD as opposed to going away to a 4-year residential experience. So this particular student wanted to research the paths that are available to students and why one carries a certain status over another. So as you can see, here is the introductory paragraph, and then we have the source, which is citation annotation, and it works through the whole document. So you can roll through this. Of course, it's just an example. Every annotation is different depending upon the topic and the sources. But as you move here to take a look, right, what an annotation is I ask you to introduce the article and title, Then explain why it's credible. Give me information about the authors, what they do, what's their credibility, much like everybody's done for the Twangy and Lukianoff articles in the critical thinking essay. You want to summarize and respond. So it's a three-part annotation, and I pretty much stick to those three parts when I'm looking for and assessing your annotated bibliographies. All right, three-part process, much like you all did for the critical thinking essay. I'm working with Twangy and Lukianoff and Height, right? All right, so sorry for the length on this. It's running about 15 minutes, but um, initial post on Tuesday, research modules 1 to 4, research modules 5 and 6, and then responses due on Sunday. In between time, I would start work on researching for your topic. And I want to be clear as I wrap this up that your research topic, your all activities from this point on are all focused on your research topic. So the sources you find for the annotated are the sources you're going to work with for the double entry journal, are the sources that you're going to work with and use for your research essay. They're going to form the basis of your analysis and your research. You may add sources, you may shift them around a little bit as you get into the research essay, but remember your focus at this point is one topic, and all your efforts from here on out are going to just come together for that research essay that's due at the end of the course. All right, enough of talking. I hope everybody, like I say here in my announcement, if there's any fathers out there, have a good Father's Day. All right, thank you and good luck.